These roundtable groups are the steering committees for our country who carry out the banker-controlled globalization program, or New World Order. Now, this term has been thrown around for 30 or 40, 50 years, and it's just in the last couple of years that the mainstream media will even acknowledge it, even though we've got Ban Ki-moon, which is the head of the UN, and
Bush wanted a presentation introducing
September 11th, 1991.
Yep.
He gave a speech about the real possibility of a new world order. This is Daddy Bush. The answers to these problems are complex but can be done. What is known is that our Constitution gives us the end game for this transition to a metal-backed currency and honest banking. The following is a short version of the 16-point plan laid out by G. Edward Griffin's The Creature from Jekyll Island, and is what I would use as a blueprint to regaining a sound monetary policy. This is just a rough outline, and once we get this thing rolling, we're going to bring in economists that have been working on this and that understand the fraud. I'm not going to go through these 16 things, but there is a way to get from the Federal Reserve notes. We're going to abolish a lot of the debt that's held by the private bankers, and we're going to move the Federal Reserve notes into silver-backed dollars. It's going to be hard. A lot of people are going to lose a lot of money. The biggest thing is if you've got anything in pensions, anything you can move out, like 401k, I would move it into gold and silver, because right now the price of all these metals is being deflated. They throw all kinds of tons and tons of gold and silver onto the market to try to keep the price down. If price jumps to $2,000 or $3,000 an ounce, that will alarm the people, especially since I just read an article that some of the gold held in Fort Knox may be counterfeit. It's not verified yet, but the Chinese took a delivery and they actually drilled holes down into the gold and analyzed the metal, and it was found that there were tungsten cores. Tungsten has the exact same weight and density as gold, so it makes for an easy, very cheap core. All right. Without a silver-backed monetary policy and the abolishment of the Federal Reserve, our country is doomed to more debt, international influence, and eventually offshore bank receivership. We can turn this around, but only a well-informed public can accomplish this. All federal mandates and subsidies are unconstitutional, and I will fight to repeal them. The revolving door between Washington regulators and the companies they regulate must stop. The genetic modification of our food supply by Monsanto has been shown to be unhealthy, may cause cancer, and sets up the planet for a Malthusian catastrophe. Google that. If the farmers want to grow this GMO food, it must be grown in contained areas so that natural crops are not contaminated with the wind-blown pollen. The law of substantial equivalence must be repealed, and there should be mandatory labeling of GMO foods. Consumers have the right to know what they're eating. Something about that wind-blown pollen. What's happening right now is you've got a natural field of crops that gets the Monsanto patent-protected pollen blown onto these natural crops. Monsanto goes out and takes samples of the natural crops. Oh, you got our patented seed. They have the ability, and they have confiscated the entire field of crops from the natural farmer. They've got the, Monsanto has the judges in their pocket on that one. I believe global warming is caused by the sun, and to tax our citizens for carbon dioxide is a scam to introduce global government and the end of sovereignty. Cap and trade is a treasonous scam. Cap and trade is a treasonous scam that will send new taxes to the IMF and World Bank so they can further bankrupt and destabilize third world countries. That is an entirely different subject. I mean, I could spend an hour just on how they do that. Read Confessions of an Economic Hitman. The property tax is unconstitutional. An amendment may be necessary to throw this thing out. I don't think the county, the state, local, or federal should be allowed to confiscate any person's property for any reason. The eminent domain thing that was passed by the Supreme Court disgusts me. The income tax should be phased out along with corporate and business taxes. We must bring back manufacturing to the United States, and the elimination of these taxes would go a long way in doing that. What we would see is, if we were to see elimination of these corporate and income taxes, we would see a flood of private capital that right now is sitting in offshore banks come into the country. And if we have the correct banking provisions where their stuff is not going to be stolen by the bank and it's actually going to be used for legitimate loans, we will see manufacturing come back. It may take a couple of tariffs in order to offset what the Chinese do with their currency.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Yeah, you need some sort of tax though to support roads.
Well, right. Well,
Like a
most
flat tax
of
or
it needs to most of it needs to be done at the state level. Once we strip the federal government of all of the agencies, the Department of Education, the BATF. There are so many different agencies. Yeah, the Arse is gone too. There's so many agencies at the federal level that need to be just completely abolished. You walk into the building that houses all these people and you pass out pink slips. You're all fired. This is how you get, and it kills me when they say, we create these jobs. We're creating so many jobs. Well, there's a big difference between a job in the private sector and a job in the public sector. And the key to also that is that a construction job to work on a road is not, I do not consider a private job, because it's still paid for by tax dollars. In order to support our government, we absolutely have to take raw materials and turn them into usable products. All the garbage that we buy from China now needs to be produced here in this country. We must allow the states to decide their own energy production. I don't think the federal government should have any kind of say over whether Louisiana drills off their coast or Alaska taps into Anwar. That's up for that state to decide. Illegal immigrants must return home and get in the back of the line. Fines and loss of business license should be the punishment for hiring illegals. The E-Verify is an excellent system and should be made available to everyone. Now, the E-Verify has come under the attack of the Chamber of Commerce and quite a few unions. It is by far the easiest thing to do. I think it's run through the IRS, but you basically put in their Social Security number or whatever number they give you, and they check it, and it's just that simple. But they're even fighting that. I mean, it's almost the same as showing your ID to go vote. You know, illegal immigrants should not be profiled by their appearance. They should be profiled by their vocal accent, because we have. This solves the problem. I'm not looking at the guy, I'm hearing the guy. Well, he can't speak English. That's a red flag. But then also, you've got Middle Eastern, you've got Western European that might have Russian accents. They're as white as you and me. If they speak with an accent, that might be a red flag. You might want to, before you hire that person, you might want to run them through the E-Verify. It should be mandatory for everybody. I mean, it's just, and most of these guys get here by staying past their visas. Student visas, I don't think we should have. I think the student visas should be severely limited, because until we get every student that wants to go to college here in the United States, until we get all of those people into college,
that's right.
Then maybe we might let in some people, from overseas. By allowing this, unlimited amount of people to come in and go to school, it raises the rates it costs to go to college, because there's more competition. Idle school buses during the summer school break could be used to transport illegals back to Mexico. Jets are expensive. I got no problem throwing out for some pizza.